Greetings. This is Lama Tantrapa with the Masters of the Month program, and today I am delighted to introduce to you Dr. Effie Chow. She's an international health practitioner, acupuncturist, and a U.S. Department of Health and Human Services advisor, and a public health and psychiatric nurse with a master's degree in behavioral sciences and PhD in higher education. She is a renowned expert in Qigong and Taoist arts, with over 30 years of experience in teaching subtle energy methods internationally. She is one of the most recognized leaders in the field of Qigong in America and the founder of American Qigong Association, as well as the World Qigong Federation. Today, we will be discussing the applications of Qigong that would help veterans and people who are returning from the military service to the civilian life, and to integrate into civilian life with a greater harmony and sense of inner peace. Welcome to our program, Dr. Chow.
Thank you very much, Lama. I'm happy to be here again.
Would you share with us a little bit about Chow Qigong first, before we jump right into the subject of working with the veterans?
Surely. But first, I want to congratulate you on your good work with the people and appreciate your efforts in bringing Qigong to the fore and having the chance for featuring many of the different masters.
It is my pleasure, really.
Thank you. And Qigong is, as everybody knows, is simply put breath, or the vital life force, and cultivation of vital life force. And many different people do it in many different ways. And I developed the Chow Medical Qigong, or basically what I call it is Chow Integrated Healing System / Chow Medical Qigong. And so the integrated healing system encompasses a whole lot more than what people feel Qigong is, although my definition for Qigong is really a special spiritual, mental, and physical lifestyle in harmony with nature. So it's not just an exercise, and it's not just a meditation, which a lot of people think Qigong is, it's another exercise. Yeah. So I'd like to break that fallacy, So
yes, the myth about Qigong.
Right, but however, in my system, I've adapted it because in China they used to have you just stand or do a movement and repetitively until you feel the qi. And in the West, I find that people aren't going to stand for 8 months to find that qi. And so we need to explain, we need to coordinate things together so that they can understand. And using terms like 5 elements and yin yang and etc. Escapes them without associating with some Western terminology like plus and minus or negative and positive polarities is what yin yang is like. So in my system, I correlate a lot of different terminologies to our Western minded vocabulary. And being a nurse myself, I understand the thinkings of the Western mind here and people in the medical field. And so what I've done is taken some very salient things from numbers of different styles, like I've taken Shaolin, and I've taken five animals, and the 6 sounds, and Tai Chi, and many other different forms as well. So I have taken the best of what I felt was very powerful and combined them together and integrated it with some of the Western health concepts and my own idea about what energy is. And of course, that is related to the Chinese system of meridian energy and the points and all that. So,
it sounds like you've done what Bruce Lee was encouraging to do in Kung Fu. Take what works for you discard what doesn't work and contribute your own, so that that becomes an authentic expression. And
Yes.
that sounds like that's what you created.
I think when you say discard what doesn't work, I would say that other people might find what I found less effective, probably maybe effective for them, because our energy is very different. And so I'm combining things in a different way. And so therefore, I think all is useful, and except that you need to select what is more useful for you.
Okay.
And so with my development of this, I detail in and explain to people why we do something and relate it to Western anatomy and physiology. And also, I've developed the system so that we get spectacular, spontaneous results. For example, something like pain, okay, that's the most common thing, right?
Sure.
And that's the most least exciting, of what we deal with, but however, that's the most common. For example, pain, I'm known for instantaneous relief of pain, even if it's many years. For example, frozen shoulder, that's a very common thing, isn't that right? Or we call it bursitis. And people who have had bursitis or frozen shoulders, they can't lift their arm past up their shoulder, and it's excruciating pain for anywhere from 1 year to 50 years. Somebody who's 70 years old, for 50 years they've had frozen shoulder. And in 5 to 10 minutes, I have relieved it, and they brought it up. And so I said, okay, bring your arm up. They couldn't move it. And after I worked with them, and I said, okay, continue, bring it up. And then up there. And then I said, do you know where your arm is? And they would say, well, oh, I've never been able to do that. And they don't even realize it when they move and be able to do that. And we also back pains. I had a gentleman who was over 60, retired, and he had never been able to run for 28 years. We found out after I worked with him for 8 minutes on his meridian system. And he got up. I was demonstrating to a crowd of 300 people. He got up and he started running across the stage. And he says, what am I running for? How come I'm running? He said, I haven't run for so long. So I said, how long? He says, wow, since 1988. And we figured out it was about 28 years. Isn't that fantastic? And so I said, okay, everybody was hooting and howling at that time. And so I said, okay, go run and go see all the people in the hall. So he ran around the room to hooting and hollering and clapping and laughter and everything. That's the kind of workshop I have all the time. And it really is very, very joyful. And that, most people don't like to talk about the miracles that happen. And we're saying that if you haven't been able to run for 28 years, and in 8 minutes you're able to run, would you call that a miracle?
Most people would, yes.
Yeah, many people won't. They'll say, well, we'll just wait to see how he is.
Well, the reason why some health professionals may be skeptical about it is because sometimes the person may experience such a dramatic transformation that they're not really even ready for. In other words, they've already established a long-standing habit of compensating for their disability. And to suddenly start functioning in a way that they're not used to may not feel like they don't feel like themselves anymore. And so there is a likelihood of person backsliding or reverting back to the habitual way of being just because they're used to being that way. In other words, they wouldn't have to dismantle their sense of identity of who they think they are.
Well, but that's what a good Qigong master would do, is to continue working with the person. It isn't, voila, now you can run. And then say, yes, of course, it will slide back. It could slide back. But I've had people who have maintained it because they haven't come back for whatever reason, or they are at the other ends of the world. But that is my next thing, is that if you practice, you can maintain what you have gained and help your body, mind, and spirit adjust to this new person that is you.
Well, that's exactly what I do as a Qigong coaching.
Yes.
The system that I developed, as you know, about a dozen years ago, and that basically not only facilitates healing, but also enables the person to create a different sense of self that would integrate the newly created availability.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you do that? What is your
I
method?
think coaching is a new term this last 6 years or so.
It's been around ever since Tony Robbins started doing coaching on the radio talk shows and eventually on television.
So he's about 15 years or so, But coach, that word coach has been here for ever since verbiage began, But the thing is, in every phase of life, that there are certain terms that come out, and then everybody uses it to death. And so, yes, we have Chow Qigong coaching too as well. The students do a lot of coaching. And, we've been in practice for over 40 years. And so you have to coach people, but I call it education or coaching. And so I don't treat people. And none of my students, I admonish them if they say, oh, let me treat you. And I said, no, you don't treat them. You are a catalyst for God's energy, or whatever you want to refer that, the higher divinity and the central power of the cosmos. And you are a very important catalyst, or you transfer the energy. And if you're good, then you help to make it even stronger when it transmits through you. And that's it. But you don't heal. It's the person who receives this, and they're taught how to heal themselves. Excellent. And so if you say, I heal, I tell my students and my patients, clients, I don't call them patients, I said, if you hear somebody say, I will heal you, I will treat you, then you run the other way.
If you can run. Well, and if we come back to
go the other way,
if we come back to the subject of working with veterans, would you share with us a little bit how that came about first?
Well, actually, I always have long histories to things, but I'll make it short. In 1974, I was working with Dr. Philip Lee, who was the president of UC San Francisco, the chancellor of UC San Francisco, and then he had set up a program called Health Policies Program, and then he became the undersecretary in the nation. So I had the privilege of working with him, and at that time, in 1974, around then, the country was considering a monolithic system of health care, which is like England, like Canada, and so forth, that it's a socialized medicine thing. And it was exploring six different systems. One of them was John Kennedy's system, and the other was the Veterans Administration. And I got to know them very well. I toured all the hospitals and looking at how they could become the system if USA were to become socialized medicine. And that was back in 74. And I discovered Champva, Champus, and all that, the help for the family developed at that time. And so I knew the intention was good, but the veterans were not really getting the goods, even at that time, not as much as they should be. And it's just been carried on. And so I've been keeping track of what the veterans' ordeal was. And my heart is really right in there, because particularly the last years of very intense war in the Middle East and et cetera, since Vietnam, I guess, that's 40 years ago, Lama, right? And so, and it just hurts my heart to see the veterans come back, and they cannot get together with the families because they've been away 10 years or so, 8 years, or even 5 years. That's a lot to be told. And they were young, they got married young, and the children, So it was a totally different language. So families fail when they come back. Then jobs fail. There's so many unemployed veterans. And the most painful for me is that they have so much pain, physical, emotional, and spiritual pain, and what they call is PTSD. But remember, not only veterans has PTSD. People ordinarily going through trauma of divorce, or marriage, or whatever, or job loss and things like that, and our economic failure and so forth. People are having PTSD here in America, not just veterans. And so, except that it's just been pointed out with the veterans. So this is why I found that my system, the integrated healing system and Chow Medical Qigong, was so phenomenal in instantaneous pain relief and also turning their minds around to a focus that is more whole, and they're able to lose their sufferings from having seen their friends die on the field. And we have one. I have a videotape of it. The Missourian News made a videotape of this fellow, Jerry Kupik, who was from Vietnam. And he, for all these years, he's been treated for PTSD. And in one session that I had in January the 18th, sponsored by the Truman Veterans Administration Hospital in Columbia, Missouri. They've sponsored 2 of my programs now, some major programs. We had over 100 people at each of the programs, and 200 and so forth. And well, Jerry, after even Friday night, he said, Saturday he came back, he said, I slept like a baby for the first time in 30 years. Every day I've wakened up with pain, and I have a fitful sleep. I have not had a good night's sleep. So after the Friday 2-hour program, he said, I slept right through. And then Saturday, after our exercise meditation, we have a lot of discussion too, psychological discussions and all that. And he said, I feel whole for the first time. Whole. And he said, I've been so depressed. And this is videotaped. And so there were others who also had pain throughout the body. And in about 8 minutes, when I demonstrate how to scan, how to move qi, and how to bring qi in where it's needed, etc., he was working with a party with another lady. And his report was, my God, about 8 years, he was from Iraq, the war. And he says, for the first time, I am totally free of pain. And then the lady he was working on, she had pain of the neck, and she had pain of the back, and all the way down to the back. And so he was explaining, he says, my God, I can't believe it. Is it really true? I scanned her, and I could feel this something funny in the back of her neck. And so she confirmed that, yeah, I got really tight necks, always painful. And so he went and brushed it, and it relieved it. Then he said, I came down to the back of her and did the scanning. And he said, my hand kept going off to the left, the left there. And he said, I know I have a right hip pain, but when I went back to the back, and it came down, and it kept going off to her left, And everybody laughed. Well, we had over 100 people, there. And he said, I asked her, do you have something there that keeps dragging my hands over there? She said, yes, I have a left hip problem. And so, okay, what do you do? So he went and brushed it. And said, remember, this is the first time working with qi, or even knowing anything about qi. So wow. He brushed it, and he said, oh my God, it's free, I'm free of pain. Then he scanned the back of her leg, and he said, that's not it only. He says, I went down the leg, and I felt it was really tight, and it was like I had a hard time just moving through it. And I asked her, what is it? She said, yeah, I've got really tight muscles in the back of my thighs and my calf. And so, okay, let's brush it, So he brushed it, and she says, oh, that feels relieved. So this is just one case. We have this with most everybody experience something like that in my workshops.
Well, let me ask you, so how do you work with the root cause of the tension? Uh, you don't just brush off the energy and
No.
address the root cause by doing so. What is the way that you address the root cause of that tension in people's bodies?
Well, the root cause, we talk about where the pain is. It's a symptom of where it might come from, other parts of your body.
Exactly.
And so that's often the way. So that in the beginning, what I do, I teach them, and they're able to do this. And it gets them excited to learn more.
Right.
You understand? So if they're sitting there and I'm just talking at them and I say, oh, I can do this and I can do that, this is the difference with my system. I can teach them right away and they can get results. But how do they get results? Is that I'm being the catalyst in this first time effort with them. So I become the conduit with them. So they are, what they call it, when you use somebody else as a conduit,
Yes, I understand. So
Yeah.
that is what happens in the
But
workshop.
however, then we get into training. Remember, I have training sessions, 100-hour, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, in which we go into all the meridians and the basis of Chinese medicine, because for me, Qigong is part of the very basics of traditional Chinese medicine.
Exactly.
And so we talk about the imbalances, etc. So, for example, the muscles are actually related to the spleen. The spleen energy affects the muscles. And the liver energy affects the tendons. And the kidney energy affects the bones. So let's take a look at this neuromuscular, situation. Okay? So if it's just surface muscle, we talk about the spleen possibly. And so we assess the spleen. We can also sense. So I teach them to assess the spleen by, again, sensing the qi. So we develop their sensitivity to the qi very early, in the very beginning.
Wonderful.
Not like waiting, and so therefore, and for example, if you feel something in your ear, then they discover that they have hearing problem. And so what organ is the ear related to? The kidney, right? So the kidney imbalance, excessive or deficient. And that's the other thing with ringing the ears. And that's another thing which is with the veterans as well, ringing the ears and ear affected because of the, bombs
Banging.
and
Yes,
gunshots
explosions.
and the loud noises. And we have that with our population. The kids are losing their hearing because of punk rock and because of all the noisy music and they love noise, etc. And so ringing the ears from the longest I had was 45 years. And from again recent a couple months or so, but I really love that. 10 minutes ringing the ear gone. So you're going to say, well, how do they make it so that it stays? Well, they learn how to do Chao Qigong. They learn how to assess, do energy diagnosis. They're not supposed to diagnose, but energy diagnosis is okay, right? Other diagnostics is for MDs only. But
Right.
energy assessment, I call it, and sometimes they call it diagnose. So they learn all of this, how to diagnose energetically, and then how to associate parts of the body to the organs, because that's basically where it comes from. Like the liver affects the eyes, right? And so forth. And so that's all deep theory. So I teach deep theory as well. But what we do is hook them in by them being able to experience it immediately. And so we've had more problems. For example, we had a gentleman who had a really hot tongue. Okay, really hot tongue. So I said, okay, let's meditate on it. Let's use your mind. Let's project. How do you want your tongue to feel? I said, okay, make it like ice. And children are really great at this, using their mind for working with themselves. Okay, think about it as ice. And within a few seconds, that person said, oh my God, it is a chunk of ice in my mouth. I said, it's no more hot tongue. It's ice cold tongue,
So in a
That's
sense, it's a form of
ice cold.
hypnosis also, or perhaps a self-hypnosis when the person uses a certain imagination or a certain visualization or certain kinesthetic
Very
features.
important. Yeah. And so
Wonderful.
the power is within the person. This is why I say we facilitate the person to heal themselves. And so I said, look, you overdid it, my dear. And I said, now warm it up a little bit. Because you don't want ice for your tongue, right? And so,
Well, interesting that he knew how to make the ice tongue. Often people don't know how to, for example, release certain tension in their body that is debilitating to them, perhaps for many years. And so it's interesting that sometimes I actually invite them to do the opposite. Oh, you have this tension in your shoulder. Well, interesting. I wonder if you can just increase it a tiny little bit more. How can you make
well,
it so that you make the tension more pronounced and then just bring it back to where it was a minute ago? If you know how to bring it back to where it was a minute ago, you already know how to decrease it. And then you just play with it, increase, decrease, and that creates the sense of control or a certain sense of confidence. Oh, I know how to increase and decrease my own tension.
well, I think that's a workable method, but it's too slow for me.
Well, it takes about 3 minutes.
Because in all of my system, I teach people how to relax. And so therefore, if it's tension, it is learning to relax. And I physically show them how to relax. And there's also a physical way of moving the body so that it will relax immediately.
People who have been through stressful situations, and obviously being in war is a very stressful kind of environment,
Yes.
they often feel very tense. And it's not just physical tension, it's a psychological tension. So the muscles don't just tense up on their own accord, they receive signals from the central nervous system to tense up. So it is working with the central nervous system and quieting it down and developing greater sense of inner peace that manifests somatically as the more relaxed state of being. And so how do you do that? How do you facilitate the relaxation, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Oh, I love to share.
Please.
The thing is, I'm not debating you on that, what you say about teaching them how to tighten and then gradually relax back into it and then do it some more and then relax and now even more. But I start from there and I move them into relaxation I teach them to brush, and so with their own brushing, and I said, all right, now imagine that you're like a balloon, really tight balloon, and now it's like deflating. And see and feel, and use your hands to feel that your whole area is like a deflated balloon. See, even if you stick a pin in a deflated balloon, it won't burst, it has a move. But if an inflated balloon, you stick a needle in, and you can't even stick it in, you touch the tip, and it'll go pop, And so that's just one example. I have many examples which I tell them and show them, and right away they immediately get it. So I work to the mind first rather than using a physical means to do it. And
Wonderful.
it is surprising how quickly the mind picks up. And all my exercises is not a struggle and push and get further. It's learning how to bend and drop and relax and drop and bend and move further. And so I want to stand up and show you something. Is that okay?
Wonderful. Of
All
course,
right.
please.
And so I'm not sure you can see the whole though of me, but I don't know how to make it so that you can see the whole of me. So
Yeah.
there's an exercise that blends down to the side, and I get many, and I can help them do this. See, relaxing, getting your head going down, and continue on, and I'm not sure I can turn this. It goes lower, but I can continue going on, but I need to take time. And what I do is just relax and relax and relax. And I'm still going down, and I'm not sure how I can make this. All right, here. Can you still see it? And see where my hands are? You know? And anyway, I'm going to continue going down, continue going down. My knees are straight, and I am going down, and I have to move my hip over to the left and hang down, and my fingers are just 4 inches to the floor now. I'm still going sideways, and now I am touching the floor, and I'm not sure how I can show you this at all. No, I can't. But you see, and I'm bending right over to my side. My left shoulder is up to heaven, like this, and so I can help a lot of them who couldn't bend more than here move right down by teaching them how to relax. And so image-wise, they have to learn how to do that. Okay?
Wonderful.
So tell me how many other than ballerinas can bend sideways and like in between the pane of glass and get down to the floor. Okay?
While you're talking, I'll bend sideways the other way so I feel balanced.
Yes, good. Yes, I always tell my clients and patients and students to balance out the other way. Or when they practice, then they do the other side that they haven't done. So I just demonstrate to you one thing. And the other, that my exercises, I can help them learn to relax into. For example, when you bring your arm to the back, I can help them move their arm, which is going down like that, 45-degree angle, and very carefully, and teaching them how to move, I can get their arm parallel to the floor in one session in like about 10 minutes time. It's not straining, but they moving, tell them how to move their shoulders backward, how to move the back down, and then how to elevate their hands, and I hold it for support. So I support them in their exercises. We do this. I don't just say, okay, let's do 12 times this, and that's it. What we do is do once or twice and hone in on the details, and then they practice on their own. I don't just take the time and say, okay, we got to repeat this 10 times. And so we go into the detail. And it's
So it's a lot more intelligent way to approach it rather than just going through the repetitions.
But yes, and they don't get the results, that's the thing. And they can't pass it on to others. So I teach them how to teach others. And it's never pushing them. It's always totally supporting them and telling them, talking. And this is what a lot of people do. Don't talk to them. They just do it for them. And it doesn't connect. Your action doesn't connect to the brain synapses up here. The synapses in your brain. And so I always say, don't talk to them don't just move them. Because they take them and move their arm, oh, it's there, and they don't say, put your left arm down to the side of your body. Particularly after people have been paralyzed, most people would just take their arm and just move it to wherever they want. They lose patience, and this is where I have patience, and I teach patients that we get people who are paralyzed walking, even quadriplegics, that they're able to stand and move.
Well, I would say that's the difference.
The first session, Lama.
That's the difference between a good healer and a great healer. It's the patience.
Well, or one that the divine has given the access to the power.
Well, and it's crucial that you're engaging the person in self-healing process. In other words, they are learning how to work with themselves rather than just passively receiving a treatment.
Absolutely, yes. And so, and that's the total thing of my teaching, is I'm right there with them, and I don't just have them repeat things. I always specifically tell them exactly what to do, and even finding the point. Finding the point on the meridian system. If you're off even just one little iota, it doesn't get the same results.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So would you share with us a little bit more about your work with veterans in terms of people who have spent 5 or 10 or more years in the military service often are used to receiving and following orders. And so in a sense, the old school of Qigong, where the master just tells the student, do it like this and you're fine. If not, then you're a bad student. How do you help them overcome this type of mental conditioning?
as I said, my system is an integrated system. So it isn't just exercise and meditation. I have a psychiatric background. I'm a psychiatric nurse as well. And, um, and also my master's in behavioral sciences and communication, etc. So I use all of that to facilitate my communication with the individual. And I have processes with my students. For example, I have these circles that we have, and everybody speaks. And some people would say, I hate talking in circles. I mean, I hate talking with people. And yet they would talk when they come around to them because I've built a parameter where it's safe for them to talk. I say, everybody, and no matter what you say, it's okay. And so that's only one thing. So the circles I do, and I can go into more depth at some other time because this is just scratching the surface. For example, in one of the circles in the morning, I say, okay, what we do is say hello, and everybody says hello, whether it's 60 people in the circle or 2 in the circle or whatever. Everybody says, hello, Lama, and really say it like they love you and they really, cherish you, etc. And then the person says what's good. News and good, I call it. So it doesn't matter. If you say, I had soup this morning and it was good and hot. Or you can say, wow, I came to Qigong last night for the first time and I have no pain now. So from the whatever, simple to the big, but we won't allow, oh, it's good weather today. We would make them think and say, we want something specific about you that is good. And so that this is about what's good happening to you. But there's another circle that we talk about, you have to think about what's good about you. And they sometimes say, oh, well, I like to paint. I said, no, that's not acceptable. Are you good at painting? And it's not by criteria of anybody. It's like anybody can be good at painting. You see a lot of artwork that is selling for thousands of dollars. I wouldn't pay thousands of dollars for that. And I think it's lousy artwork. So therefore, if you like your artwork, you gotta say, I am good at painting. So I make them go through this process, and they love it. And if we don't have it, they say, where's our circle? So they get used to talking and focusing attention on themselves and focusing on looking at good things. Because I said, every day you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say something good about yourself. And it's not constantly say, oh, I got beautiful eyes. The next day is, oh, I got beautiful eyes. Next day, oh, I got beautiful eyes. You got to look for something else because you are a million things.
Well, those eyes will be receiving a lot of attention, and of course, where attention goes, the energy flows. So maybe that person will be empowering their eyes.
Exactly. Well, but the thing is, I don't want them to get away with saying the same thing all the time.
Right.
Also, so it makes their mind think, and it makes them every day look for something else about themselves. Now the other is saying something good about the person next to them. Okay, you're going to say something good about the person to the left of you. Okay, and please find out what her name or his name is now. Don't wait until you come to the circle and say, oh, I didn't get your name. So these are all very precise exercises that I do with everyone. And there are many, and some dysfunctional families have brought these kind of exercises, processes I call them, and it has changed the whole process of their whole family. The love has increased, and the respect for the youngest one and for the oldest one, like grandpa, grandma, have changed tremendously, and that they communicate better. So this is, in working with the veterans, this type of exercise. This is why I said it isn't just good for the veterans, and it isn't just good for the non-veteran. It really is for any human being, And so then the other one that I have is the other part of the process is that we have to clap, you know. And you know how we grow children. And a lot of one of my major focus in my training is that I look at everybody as their children. And if I'm talking to a child, it's not you that I'm talking to as a child. It is 100 trillion cells in your body. That's a lot. I said, they are your children. They are your babies. And they are listening to everything that you think and say and do. And so if you think negative thoughts, your children are going to, for example, even you say, I have no pain. The child does not hear no. The child hears pain. And so the child's going to be good and say, oh, mama wants pain. Let's give it to her, you know. And so I play this sort of thing too. So it's not a heavy, stick on the person or anything like that. And they get it. And so they clap after a person says something good about themselves, hey, and etc. And so everybody gets clapped. You can imagine what a circle feels like, eh? By the time they come around to 60 people, eh?
So they develop certain positive mental attitude and perhaps also get cheered up by the next neighbor, the person standing next to them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And there is also a certain reciprocation, I imagine. So not only telling the person on your left what you appreciate about them, you also receive the same kind of
exactly
confirmation of your worth or your value.
And then everybody gives accolade to the person who is, whether it's yourself or the person next to you, etc. And that's really important because that's how children learn, is by clapping and this happy, joyous attitude of the parents. They don't know what it means. All they know is that the parents were happy. So I must have done something right. And so then they try to repeat it. And so the parents go, oh, you did it again? Oh, And so the child said, oh, I did something again, good. So
the positive reinforcement of sorts.
Exactly. So they do that again and again. They said, oh, that's it. Now, if I do it more, they get more happy, But it works the other way, that if you do not give them positive affirmation, and you then, if they misbehave, and you say, oh, and then you give them attention, and you don't generally give them attention, but then when you do something incidentally, you kick them or something, and then the mother said, why'd you kick me for, and wow, I got some attention. And then they say, oh, well, let me try that again.
Again, where attention goes, energy flows. So that's the way for a child to gather some energy from the parent.
And then he kicks her harder, and she reacts more, And so he says, oh, wow, if I do it more, I'll get more attention, So these are the psychology of life, actually, and of growing up. And so anyway, we do utilize that. They understand. And the other concept that we have, which is very important, Lama, is that the family, this is a Chow Qigong family. And it doesn't end with this circle. It doesn't end because this weekend ends. We want you to bring it and create this ambience in your area. Because many people go to Qigong, and not just mine, but to others, and say, oh, this is so wonderful, but I got to go back to that awful mess. I said, no, you don't have to go back to that awful mess. Go back to that mess and make some changes. Do what you were doing here to create that ambience.
And perhaps also learn to recognize that the mess is not the problem. It is perhaps a fantastic learning opportunity.
Exactly.
So when we look at the mess and we just dread it or want to get rid of it, that's one thing. But if we look at it and say, how interesting, I've created this mess. What is it that I was trying to teach myself?
Exactly.
So, and I imagine you also have ways to facilitate your students or your clients' learning process so that they would really discover the meaning or the lessons within those situations that they used to perceive as problems.
Well, that's what everybody coming in, for example, clients, okay? And I said, my first thing is that this is an opportunity. We changed their thought pattern right away. And I said, and in my book, you'll find, I said, the condition is a friend. Even the cancer is a friend. Your heart condition is a friend. And the people who first read that or talk to me, how can I see that as a friend? It's killing me. I said, that's right. If you keep seeing it that way, it will kill you. And I said, but just think, if you look at it as a friend, and I said, just think, could you have something worse than what you have now? Oh, yeah, I could have really bad depression. I could have really bad, psychological problems. I could have a tic like this, and et cetera. And then they suddenly realized, yeah. I said, well, what you have is not the worst, is it? So it's a friend that's coming to tell you that, hey, it's time for you to focus on me. Focus on me. Give me some good attention, not bad attention, like more smoking or drugs or drinking or whacking yourself, or berating yourself, all those negative ways in which you do. I said, you start, look at yourself in the mirror. Tell me a good thing about yourself. Oh, I can't think of anything. And just, no. So I get people to help. If the students are around, I say, okay, what's good about Lama? And then they start saying, and the person said, oh, really? I don't see that. And so then we make her look, and we repeat it again and say, yeah, Lama, you've got a beautiful smile, And then, of course, they hold it down, I says, no, let it go up like that, I said, and then they laugh, they kind of giggle and snicker, and then we go through other, probably about 2 or 3 steps like that to get them. So we embarrass them. I said, now you're really embarrassed, aren't you? We humor a lot, and laughter is very, very important, having a sense of humor. But also in the circle Lama, they could see that they're not the one that's going to be picked out for well, let's say we say, hey, that's not accepted. You got to give me something more in depth, and so you hook the people when you talk to them, So that's talking about energy exchange. If you just say, oh yeah, it's nice weather, you're not hooking anybody. But if you say that wow, this morning for the first time I woke up, I didn't have to go to the bathroom. Things like that is meaningful, and it can be anything, right? And so then they know that if we say, hey, that's not right, we'll say that to other people too, so they feel that they're in the same boat, so that you're not just pointed out. So that's really important. And the family concept is really, really beautiful. For example, in Colombia, and he's a veteran, he had Parkinson's, and he had shaking so bad that he couldn't hold anything, And he also dragged his one foot. He couldn't walk or balance. And so in one session, I got him to learn how to reduce his shaking, and also that he could walk with his feet properly in one session, 1 hour. But he was taking my level 1 course. And so after 3 sessions, he joined the competition for rifle competition.
Huh.
And last year he joined it, he didn't win anything. He was like so shaky. He said he won 11 out of 13 medals this time.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it is. Isn't that right?
Very impressive, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so, and then also he has a blueberry farm.
Okay.
And so it was winter, like this winter in January. It was really miserable, and he has to walk around, and he's still not that, steady that he can deal with muddy things and all that. And so I said, well, look, what do you have to do? You have to get some steps, to go all the way. And so he says, well, there's a couple of kids that I sort of don't want to call on. They usually help me. I pay them, etc. But they don't do a good job. I said, well, you have a family, the Chow Qigong family. I said, give Tim a call. and see whether he can make some time to come and put up the board so that it won't be sliding around on your driveway or walkway. And so, oh, okay. He called Tim, and Tim came right the next day and helped him. So that's a family we created. It isn't just by name or by word, it's actually by action.
So this is what I call, rather than just teaching a Qigong style, teaching a Qigong lifestyle.
Exactly. And this is what my goal is, right from the very beginning, 40, 50 years ago, that I don't want Qigong to be seen as an exercise and a meditation. It is a lifestyle. It is an important way of life, way of communication, way of relating to people and to your community and to the world and to the universe. Because at another time, we'll talk about the life outside of this universe as we know it. But as science knows, there are other lives, etc., right? Yeah.
Sounds intriguing. Yes, I definitely would love to speak to you about that in our future webinars. And would you share with us today what it is that you will be presenting in our next 3 webinars over the next 3 consecutive weeks?
Well, I thought of course, we can divert, from whatever we do, and I would love to people to write in and ask for what is potent to them. In session 2, we're talking about daily impact of Qigong, not necessarily only speaking about the dramatic things, but stress is a huge factor. And now it is known that stress is a basis of all conditions, all problems, big or small. And that's even NIH ratified, National Institutes of Health ratified. And I was with National Institutes of Health for over 37 years. And I remember when back in the 70s, that they said, stress? What's that? And Hans Selye is a father of the name stress. He coined the word stress. Dr. Hans Selye. He's a Montrealer, and he's passed away about 10 years now or so, but he's a grand old man, which he was on our board, and I've had the chance to have him with our program and our World Congress programs and all that, and it was really wonderful. So dealing with sort of everything, everyday sort of thing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the import of learning to scan and brush and pack, And then, of course, I haven't even talked about breath. And breath is really important. So if we don't have time to emphasize breath this time.
Well, let's start our next webinar with that.
Next time, you mean?
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to remind our listeners and viewers that we will have this series of 4 webinars, with this one being the first one. And 3 will be happening also over the course of the next 3 weeks, and you will need to register for them in order to get access for them. And during those webinars,
that third one, we're going to deal with like serious conditions and past traumas, and also death, because that's a whole field that people do not deal with, and they don't talk about it until they're faced with death, and then, oh my God,
And that's a bit too late to talk about.
Fear. Yes, exactly. And the fourth one that you were mentioning, we're going to be talking about power and the future.
Fantastic.
That's sort of power here on Earth and power elsewhere from Earth.
Wow, this is a very exciting program. And I also would like to encourage you, Dr. Chow, to share a little bit about the upcoming event, the World Qigong Congress that's coming up in just a little over a month.
Well, gladly. This is the 15th World Congress on Qigong and TCM, the traditional Chinese medicine. And it's back into San Francisco. Last year it was in Toronto, and you were there. And this year it's back in San Francisco. And we have partnered with the Asian Heritage Street Celebration for the Saturday is that, okay? AHSC we call it. And we because we partnered with them last year, but our Congress wasn't here. We drew 100,000 people in the one day, in the Saturday. And these are people who have not heard about Qigong, and many of them are very interested in learning about Qigong. So we have a fresh, whole new 100,000 people to educate in one area. And so not that we're going to reach all of them all that time, but it'll be a beginning, and every year we're going to be doing this. So, so it's going to be the 17th to the 20th. We have pre-Congress programs, training programs, and post-Congress training programs. And the Congress starts the grand opening Friday, 7 p.m., and it goes until Sunday at 6 p.m. And so we have a gala on Saturday evening, which then the awards are given for people, the coveted awards for Qigong Master, Tai Chi Master, Traditional Chinese Medicine Master, Martial Arts Master, and PR of Excellence, and a Client of Excellence too as well. So, and people can send in names for that. They can nominate, and our website will show more detail. And it's www.eastwestqi.com. And just go to World Congress, 15th World Congress there. And we have people, we have about 6 people coming from China, real top experts. And we have Italian, Romania, and Japan. Master Dr. Shin Chi-ping, he will demonstrate anesthesia for the teeth because he's done this for surgery. And I said, we don't want to see just the film on the surgery done with dental anesthesia with Qigong. We want you to demonstrate it. And the last time, numbers of years ago, he demonstrated on 7 people at once.
7 people had teeth problems, toothache, huh?
At once. And at one time, and he froze them all, except for the 7th one. He froze them halfway. But, that is phenomenal. We had a dentist check them all.
Are they still frozen?
And they could have undergone surgery, too, with the same similar continuous. And we also have a gentleman who can turn mud into sand, because he can raise his body heat so high that in under 1 minute, he can change mud into sand. And he can also walk on paper, elevated paper. Not
Can he
paper,
walk in water?
I don't know. We haven't asked him that yet. And so there are other people who can heal also instantaneously. We have one from China who does distant healing from there to there. And of course, I myself do distant healing from here to Ireland, from here to Germany, back to Bangkok, and etc. Distant healing, remote healing. And we may talk about that in one of the other sessions.
That will be definitely an interesting subject to discuss.
But I hope everybody will plan to come and support it. The fees are very nominal. And also, like for example, for the whole program, it's only $198. Only
$198.
For the whole Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Under 200
And that
bucks.
includes the gala and also lunch on Sunday.
Wow.
And I have really put my heart out,
This is tremendous, and this is the #1 Qigong event in the world, is it not?
Well, it's been reputed, and people use their coveted awards to spring them into international renown from being a local, expert. And we have many, many people who are so wonderful, and the people that are coming is going to be very exciting for the people who will come and attend. And so we do have still spots for exhibitors, if they wish, and also if you suddenly hear us here now and say, hey, I should be speaking, well, please apply. Look and make your application. We're happy to consider you. And if we can't this year, well, we have 2 platforms this year simultaneously, one outside with a street celebration and one inside in the hotel. So we can take a few more people. Okay. And I'd love you to see us as part of your family, a growing family, and be part of our family. We really have fun, don't we, Lama?
We definitely have lots
Yes,
of fun.
and it's fun in serious learning. And I want to prescribe my usual prescription, right? Since 1969, I prescribe 8 hugs a day at least. And you can have 100, and 3 belly aching laughs a day at least. And if you have more, you can't count that as the next day. You have to start. You have 100, you have to start the next day with number 1.
Oh, they don't carry over to the next day.
No, you can't. And so here, I'm going to give you all a big hug. Come on, give me a big hug. You have to have your face left cheek to left cheek. Okay? Because then your heart is connecting. If you do it the other way, right cheek to the right cheek, your heart is skipping each other. So, okay, Lama, I give you a big hug.
Oh, yes, I send you lots of love too. Thank you so
all
much.
your viewers a nice big good health to everybody.
Thank you. Speak to you next week.